Good day to you. We have a lot for you on today's show. My name is William Stringer. I'm the producer.
I'm Chef Jonathan Frazier, and today we're talking about careers in the food industry.
Ooh, and this is the Edible Valley Podcast.
Do you ever wonder where your food comes from? That's what got us started on this adventure.
In each episode, we ask experts to weigh in on the food topics that matter to you, from growers to producers to chefs.
And I challenge John, Darren, and you to learn more about your food and the stories behind it. From our hub on Vancouver Island in the beautiful Comox Valley, join us as we explore our Edible Valley. Well, hello to you. Welcome to episode, what is it? What episode?
I believe we were at 217.
217.
I know, it's flying by, eh?
You know, a lot of time when I tell people, hey, I do a podcast, kind of drop it into conversation. It's been going for 12 years. You've been doing it for... No, actually, you know, this guy across he started it years ago.
I got 12 years in on this. I mean, we haven't done 100 shows every year, but we're definitely working on it, so...
Let's just continue.
All right.
Honestly, we're looking at making ourselves as slick as possible so you can listen to it and go,
yeah,
wow.
And I'm still the chef of a restaurant, so I constantly have emails and texts, and I'm like, turn everything off. It's amazing how staff are always texting you going, oh, can I come in for this? Or this is happening. So... this is my life now.
You know, so I don't know if I should say this. You know that the chef, the owner and the legend of Atlas Cafe, Mr. Trent McIntyre, he is currently residing temporarily on a holiday basis in the country of Mexico, having a good time. And I love Trent. So I texted him yesterday. I was like, Trent, is there any tomato in the enchilada? No reply.
Oh,
he's enjoying himself. He's enjoying himself.
Yeah, I know exactly what he did with that. Delete.
Delete. Okay, so we've got a lot for you in today's show. We are talking introduce it, John.
Well, you know, this one, this is going back to my chef series that I've been working on for the last, 2 years now. So, and whenever I get a chance to sit down, and I just want to talk about the industry and what it's like to work in the industry. And we've done a bunch of things like talked about different schooling and techniques on that, and just a little bit about the industry itself. And so I just thought, let's talk a little bit about the positions that are available for cooks, maybe a little bit about some wages and stuff like that, what training you need for that, and then where you can work in the industry, because it's a huge, broad area to work in, right?
Well, I had a look at the list. I had a little sneaky peek at the iPad, and there are actually a lot of places you can work in a chef. You just think, oh, well, I'll be a chef in a restaurant. And it's like, it's not that at all, actually. If you are this type of person, if you're that type of person, it's almost like I'm not a chef, but even if I was a chef, there'd be the place for me to do it. There's so many. So should we just hit the list?
It's a huge list, right? So we're talking about, the food industry. And so we're talking everywhere from institutional places, so like hospitals and such, to all the way to your hotels, resorts, you know, your exclusive little places out in the middle of nowhere, right?
I mean, they're all going to have something going for them. I'm thinking like a hospital. If you're like, well, I just want to have my podcast playing in the background or the radio in the background. I want to get on with it. I want to do it. I want to do a good job. But I don't want to be, table 2 sent this back because they don't think and whatever is cooked the correct temperature. Well, let's face it, they're not going to do that in a hospital. They're going to appreciate a nice hot meal. So you're going to be doing something good, but you're not dealing with that stuff. If you're that sort of person, that will work really well for you.
Yeah, and it's definitely if you're into line cooking or if you're into batch cooking or family style food, right? Like there's a huge difference, and some people strive at different things. I know myself, I love line cooking.
Right.
I love being on the line. I love the adrenaline. I love the rush. I love the teamwork that comes with being on a line.
Yeah.
You know, with the printers going off. And I know it's a nightmare. Every chef
It's a game though, isn't it?
Every chef that out there has had that dream where he wakes up and the printer just keeps going. It's just and you're just pulling off, and you're like hamburger, steak for this table, seafood for this one, and you're just like, and you just can't catch up, and you step back and you just watch this printer tape just rolling onto the ground, and, it's an absolute nightmare. But that's the nightmare. But the reality is just being involved in that and being able to push that out, and then the sense of accomplishment after finishing that huge list of everyone and making people happy is
let's start with that. Should we start with that one?
Should we start with that one?
We'll go in line. We'll just jump straight into that one.
Okay, so we wanted to talk about some of the positions in the kitchen. So we're talking about the printer going off. So that is definitely a line cook. Now, line cook's primary duty is to ensure the quality of the meal and to place the meals up to the servers to go out to the restaurant. So a lot of them is having all their mise en place in front of them and preparing to order what's to go out. I was looking at an average is around $18.33 an hour.
Okay.
For the industry is sort of what I'm just going by a list that I saw on Indeed for what right now is going out there. And this typically you need to have sort of experiences is basically having some culinary school behind you to be in this position. A lot of cooks start off in the bottom, sort of doing the salad side, garden manger, and then working their way up to like a fry cook or a rotisserie cook or any one of those saucier. And
are they bringing in tips and things like that typically to top up their wage?
Yeah, definitely. So I know a lot of restaurants work with the servers who collect the tips. They pay out, and you should know this well, that when you do your serving at the end of the day, you pay out the kitchen percentage of the tip, and then that tip is divided amongst the kitchen staff. Yeah, and actually all floor staff that are non-servers.
So let's do some positives and negatives on that. Positive things about being a line chef.
Being a line cook is the adrenaline rush, working with a team and being part of that team, right? Yeah. Like it's a great opportunity. It's also some of the great positive things about that. You get to prepare really beautiful food, right? Like a lot of that. It's not just, a lot of it's about your presentation and being able to have control of your final product and putting it in the window before it goes out to a person. As
a head chef, are you essentially assembling the various different components that have been cooked by the other line cooks?
Pretty much. That's that's what cooking is basically.
Yeah, it sounds easy, but I get that it's not.
Where I'm just like, it's assembly. But that's what you're doing. You want to have everything together. That's why we say mise en place. Yeah. And then you're basically assembling dishes to send out. So that's like a pasta, having all your ingredients there in front of you and throwing them in at the right time to combine them to send that out.
And you're shouting, right? Is that done? How's that coming along?
And there's the pass through the kitchen of you do this, is this coming? And it's all about timing, right? Okay. So that's it. It is very stressful. I will give you that for one thing. For line cooking is probably the most stressful part of cooking because everything is down to the second, right? Yeah. Everything is down to the minute, and it's about hustle. Yeah. And getting it up because people don't understand why things take so long as they do.
And a negative and a positive is having to rely on the team. So I imagine when you've got everyone working really well, you're fully staffed and everyone's fully trained, it's like an absolute dream. You're like, wow, I'm sitting pretty because everyone's calling back, yes, chef, and no, chef, and when everything's coming. But what if so-and-so had an argument with his partner last night and he didn't come into work, or, you're looking for a new this, that, or the other? Then that must be a massive negative because suddenly a crucial part of your team is gone.
Yes, that's it. You're very dependent on everyone around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So line cooking is a beautiful one. Now, the one step down from that, we should and I shouldn't say a step down, but prep cooking, which is something that a lot of line cooks do beforehand. Okay. But there's also people that are just signed in the kitchen that are prep cooks. Usually pays a little bit less on the salary. Saying Indeed says here about $17.71 is an average. So that's an average. There's places that pay a lot more and there's places that pay a little bit less, and prep cook is basically your introduction into the kitchen, although I find I'm a prep cook most of the time in my own kitchen here because I'm spending a lot of my time in the back assembling the dishes to be ready for the line cooks to be able to present. And so, yeah, it's a lot of typically, putting together all your ingredients, making your stocks, your sauces, your soups, having that stuff already.
I actually, back in the day, I did a bit of prep cooking in Kingston, Ontario, in Chez Piggy, and absolutely loved it. It was amazing how much went into absolutely everything.
I believe you were my prep cook, too, when we did the Lush Valley emergency hot meal program.
Yeah, I was. yeah, good at that point. But yeah, that was our pandemic job, wasn't it?
That was right. We were keeping the world going.
Oh, that was amazing. Okay, let's move on.
Well, let's talk about next is the most important person. No, it's not the most important person.
The owner of the restaurant.
The customer. No,
Nice.
actually, what the most is the chef.
Yeah.
And so this is depending on what industry you are. There's always a chef, and the chef is the chief of the kitchen.
Yeah.
That is the person in charge. A lot of people like throwing down the executive chef position. I may throw that down there sometimes because, hey, I sit in the office sometimes.
That's basically a chef with a computer as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you've heard executive chef, head chef, chef de partie.
Yeah.
And basically that's the person who is the overall person running the kitchen.
Okay, yeah.
So they're making sure that the schedule's done, the orders are in, the menus are created, the costing is done. A lot of the executive chefs or head chefs, or as when I wasn't the owner here at Locals, I worked online 90% of the time. So I was a line cook as well as a chef, and I still line cook here quite a bit. So.
Yeah.
It's literally just being in every position and making sure everything goes smooth.
Is it something that executive chef should be hitting all the jobs at some point? So I've done dish pit, I've done this, I've done that, and are they continuing that?
Well, and a lot of them are well educated. Have had a lot of formal training. In the industry. I mean, a lot of executive chefs may have their CCC, which is the chef de cuisine certificate. Like in your big resorts, a lot of those guys are, they're office guys.
What is chef de cuisine? I've never heard that.
Chef de cuisine?
Yeah.
It is basically a degree in cooking. It's sort of the next, after you do your red seal in cooking, it's the next level up. It's a very intense. You're a lot of management, a lot of cooking principles and costing, and
I've never heard of that. Why are all I'm just going to chuck these out there. Why are they're all French?
It's because the whole brigade system comes from French, and that's how our restaurants are all based around, is the brigade system, and that's something I'm totally going to get into next. But,
absolutely.
It's a system that is designed that everyone has their position, and so it's like the military, right? Yeah. And the military works well because of how the military, some people may be arguing with me on this fact, but because everyone's given a position. So it works really well in a kitchen because everyone is doing a position and they're responsible for one part of the final product.
Nice.
So that's why, depending on where you are in the kitchen, and it's a chef's job to manage those positions.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next one.
Well, the next one would be the ever thankless sous chef.
The sous chef.
The sous chef. And the sous chef is such an important part for the chef because the chef can't be there 24/7.
Okay.
So basically the chef's going to be responsible for those areas within those time periods, which makes life so much easier. For me, I have 2 sous chefs here at Locals right now. One's responsible for night, one's responsible for the day. And so they basically take care of different portions of the kitchen. So I basically come to them and say, this is what I need done from the kitchen, and they're responsible for it,
And can a sous chef, can that be the end point in a career? Or are there good things about saying, actually, that's as far as I want to go?
There's any one of these positions are as far as you want to go. It depends on how much responsibility you want.
Okay.
And I always recommend being in one of these positions for a while before you move on. I wish I'd spent more time as a sous chef before I moved on to a chef.
Okay.
And I did get a bit of that experience with here at Locals.
Yeah.
Just because I had Renaud St. Pierre, who is a chef de cuisine.
Yeah.
He's got his CCC. And so having him, who was the executive chef, he was in the office, he was doing the accounting, he was doing all those aspects of it. But, and I could focus on managing the kitchen. And if I was ever had one of those things like, I don't know what to do here, there was always this guiding hand.
Yeah.
And I still have that hand out there too, that it's just now a quick phone call instead of walking into the office. So.
And I guess a good thing for the sous chefs is that one of them gets to say, well, I don't work nights, which is amazing in a restaurant. And the other one gets to say, well, I get all the day to myself and then I work at night. So that actually can be a really good thing if you've got a family, or if you've got maybe you're setting up another business. I know at the moment in the Atlas, there's a sous chef that's setting up a business. He's an amazing chef, and he's just doing all of it at the same time.
Yeah, and that's it. Like you get a bit of picking your time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of thankless industry because you're usually working when everyone else isn't working. But on the flip side of that, you have free time to do when everyone else isn't working. Like, I've always enjoyed the fact in my career that if I need to go to a bank, I have the morning to go to the bank, or if I need to make an appointment, I have the morning to have an appointment before I go into work. So there's some pros and cons to everything.
For sure. So, yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the next.
I was thinking pastry cook.
Everyone loves a pastry cook.
Yes. And so that's sort of entry level into the pastry chef world. As you can see, we're going into a stepping thing. Yeah. And this is someone who really likes to work with, pastries and it's baking, right? So that's what you're getting into, learning about cake making. You're learning about sauces, like sweet sauces.
So when you go into a restaurant, how often is, and this is a wide question, your dessert going to be made by a pastry chef in-house?
That is the problem is pastry chefs are very expensive.
Yeah.
And so you don't have the luxury. Most places don't have the luxury of a pastry chef.
Right.
I mean, at Atlas, we called the baker.
Yeah.
And we had Sheila for years. Who was absolutely the most wonderful, evil person I've ever met.
Oh, bless her. I saw her this week. She's looking so well,
she is one of my favorite people in the world, but don't cross her. Maybe that's the thing with all pastry chefs.
Strong woman.
Very.
You got to love a strong woman.
Very, very. And she was she would never be she never allow herself to be called a pastry chef.
Yeah.
She was like, I'm the baker.
Yeah.
And she would do all the desserts for Atlas, which was amazing.
Yeah, and I will say, Atlas to this day, we may not have a specifically dedicated pastry chef, but we do make all of our desserts in-house. I still have an in with the Atlas. I love it there. And they're all made in-house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're here with locals. Yeah. I have the most amazing pastry chef in the world, Rhonda, she is world renowned. Let's just call her that. She's absolutely top notch. I mean, she spent her career in Vancouver and basically retired. I wouldn't say retired, but she just moved to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city. And she's just an outdoorsy person, and she just does amazing desserts, and she knows how to do everything. And she's done the extreme end of pastry chefing, where you're coming in first thing in the morning and leaving last thing at night, because you've got to get all your desserts prepped for the day, and all your breads done, and all your pastries done, and then service comes, and then you've got, of course, desserts the last dish of the day, so you've got to put all those together. So
wow.
So it's a bit of an intense thing, but if you love pastries and you love creating food, it's one of the best.
And if you're going into, say, a franchise place, is that likely that they're brought in?
There's a lot more places that are brought in, and so it'll probably be one of the line cooks that presents the desserts. As in at Locals, most of our desserts are done by our line cooks.
Okay, let's move on to another one.
Well, we did our pastry chef, our pastry cook. I mean, we can say baker, which is another side gig to it, right?
Well, I mean, you're thinking like in town, hot chocolates, they have a number of bakers, I think.
Yes, exactly. They do. Well, cake bread. So they've got all their breads done in-house and all their pastries, all those good things. And there is some crossover between pastry chef and baker, right? So it's always like, there's always so many great treats to go along with that. And so bakers are one of those ones that's part of an industry that you're getting up early.
Yeah.
If you're a morning person and you wake up at like 3 a.m, that is a job for you.
It's like the morning radio show host on Jet FM.
Exactly.
John Varus.
Exactly.
Yeah, they are up at the crack of dawn.
The crack of dawn, and they're full of energy, and they're ready to go, and they're going to put together some beautiful product. So that is another great one. So that was kind of funny when I fall back to my Atlas thing we're saying about Sheila, and how they still continue it is they have the baker who comes in the morning and does all of that fresh bread and all those fresh ingredients. Like, it's just amazing. I even laughed because I get asked people here if I'll do desserts that we used to do back at the Atlas at local. So that's
I know especially on the weekends with breakfast, there's someone in there prepping everything from 4:35 in the morning. Sometimes that's in there.
That's how it goes. That's just part of the gig.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's get a little bit out of the restaurant, or not into, still in kitchens, but like look at banquet cooks. Okay. So that's not line cooking as much. It's more of the assembly of prep cook into the next level. So that's where you're putting more dished items together. And so, like, think about every great buffet you've ever been to and all that spread and lineup of food.
Oh yeah.
So that's your banquet cook or banquet chef. You know, those guys are the ones that are assembling all those different components to be put out there.
Are there any good buffets in this area?
I think there's, you know what? Buffets took a real kicking.
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
Something happened. I think it was 2020 that just threw a wrench into everything, which really made this industry not in a great spot. Actually, it was kind of just because. Yeah, I think honestly, I think of like cruise ships when I think about banquets and stuff like that, because they have like the big ships, and it's a great way to cook for a large amount of people. I know it's something we've been talking about doing here. So if we get a wedding or something like that,
right? Yeah.
Not that we do a lot of weddings, but you know that it is an option. It's a way to get food to a lot of people at a fairly. You can keep the price point down per customer, and and you can create some beautiful, beautiful food. But there is a definite art and technique to it as well.
And working as a banquet chef, what does that look like compared to, say, a line chef in a restaurant?
Well, I think you still have the stress that goes along with it, but you're more of creating, instead of doing, you know, individual dishes one at a time. You're doing in larger batches. So you're doing more presentation or different presentations. So you'd be doing like a whole chafing dish of chicken or something like that. So,
and I can imagine if it's, say, a breakfast buffet in a hotel or something, you might have orders and the chits are coming out. Oh my God, I got 20 orders. But if you run out of eggs and you look out the window and there are 3 people waiting for eggs, and you look out 2 minutes later and there are 10 people waiting for eggs, that must be quite scary.
That's a little bit.
Yeah.
I did a lot of buffets back in my day at the Kingfisher Inn. So I did the Sunday brunch there. And so that was running eggs Benedict and pancakes, and we would do sushi boards. We also did this huge seafood buffet, which was literally would take me 3 days just to prep all the food for that. And we were doing mirrors and terrines and pâtés and all this different crazy wild stuff. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff transfers to other industry cooking places. So like, you know, hospitals and stuff like that, where you know, they're doing big batch cookings to serve to people.
Now, we're going to have to return to this because we've got a massive list of things to go through here. But what are some of the good things and the bad things in terms of salary? Are you paid the same amount?
Well, everything's a little bit different, right? So the more responsibility you have in the kitchen, the more money you make. Yeah. And that's what it's going. I'm looking at this like a banquet cook as average is around $19.34.
Okay, so it's a little bit more.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, we're looking at a baker is about $17.11 an hour.
Yeah.
What we're looking at an executive chef is about $73,000 a year.
Nice.
Yeah, and there's a couple other little fun ones. Here's another job that I thought was kind of fun. Becoming a food tester.
Oh yeah, I like that one.
You know,
that's
a
food tester.
Yeah,
that was down. I did a little thing on the Jet the other day with the happiest jobs, and food tester was one of the top 5 happiest jobs you can do. Teaching assistant, teacher were all in there.
Really,
but food tester was up there. Yes.
Yeah, and that's basically you're putting samples together to prepare to find out what works, right? Yeah. So that's a lot. You're doing that more of a commercial situation where you're doing like, what's this company doing, and we're taking their food and making food out of it. Also in the industry, we got a food manager, right? And so a lot of their job is just managing food levels within the kitchen, making sure the service is all gone and make sure the meals are presented and served at the right time, right?
Wow. Yeah. Excellent.
What other great jobs are, the butchers are always another great thing in the industry, right? How many butcher shops are out there? And, some restaurants do have their own butchers in-house.
Well, we were in River Cottage in England, and they butchered everything. And they had a TV show called River Cottage. You can watch it. And they butchered everything. They would hang geese up so you could see them. They would have like a giant pig's head on the pass looking out at the restaurant for the pig's head terrine, and they ended up stopping doing that because it scared kids. But the whole point is, of course, to bring people into that process, because although you think, oh, well, it's animals and it's scary, well, you're still showing them everything, and the more of a light that's shined on it, the better.
Yeah, there is a bit of a disconnect between
absolutely
where your food comes from and what goes on the plate, right?
Now, do you want this to roll over into another show? Is there lots more? Or
we definitely have. Well, I think what we're going to do is that I think we can definitely roll into another show that we can talk about some of the places in the industry you can work. So, we're talking hotels, hospitals.
I would love to know about that. Who has ever seen a hospital kitchen? I can't ever recall seeing the room or the kitchen where all this is made. It just pops out.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And there's kitchens out there that just make the product for other kitchens. So that's they're just prep kitchens. So they
call them dark kitchens.
Yes.
In terms of takeaway, when you have the delivery apps that are just delivering food, and you actually look up, the restaurant doesn't really exist. It's called a dark kitchen. They've got all the marketing, but they're not really there. It's just in a warehouse somewhere.
That's awesome. That's the way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Cut down on the expenses of working in the kitchens. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all we've got time for this week on the Edible Valley podcast, but we are going to get back to that in a fortnight. Our shows will now run fortnightly, so I can't wait. We're gonna go in down and dirty in the nicest possible way to the places you can work and what are they like to work in.
I know. I'm so excited about this too. We have some great interviews lined up over the next couple of weeks. We got a bunch of really interesting people to come in and chat with us.
Yeah.
Now that we have this beautiful location at Locals Restaurant
in Courtney,
food from the heart of the island.
There we go.
Am I selling it? That's our little advertisement today.
Are we going to do that now? Absolutely. And we are busy. We've got a new restaurant owner across the table. Darren, where's Darren? We don't. Oh, bless him. We haven't even mentioned his name. We really miss him.
It's been an easy day for us.
No, honestly, it's not the same without Darren. He is busy making sushi this morning.
Yeah, he's doing 8 catering work today, so he's got a big sushi order going out to a bunch of kids for
delicious
this lunch hour. So
he is a busy guy now, and I've never seen anyone work harder than Darren Howlett, so that's amazing. Thank you very much for joining us on this episode of the podcast, episode of the Edible Valley podcast, episode, what was it, 117?
117, I believe.
117. I am William Stringer, radio host on the weekend show at 98.9 Jet FM, and almost licensed realtor for the province of British Columbia.
And I'm Chef Jonathan Frazier of Locals Restaurant.
And we will catch you in a fortnight. Take it easy. Cheers. And that wraps up another episode of the Edible Valley podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and a special thanks goes to the local businesses that help support our podcast. They make it possible for us to showcase your local food community. We'd love you to follow us on your preferred social media at Edible Valley, where you can check out our blog, find recipes and tips, behind the scenes, and of course keep a lookout for where we are going to turn up next in your Edible Valley.
You can say 17 to 18. So
we need to be easy with ourselves.
Yeah.
So you can always be like, I started the other day saying this is the William Show with Weekend Stringer. and it was actually a voice track for Sunday. I was like, should I try that again? Time for my coffee. And that was,
And this has been an Edible Valley production.
Yeah. Beep, 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 beep. Okay. Ready again?